So I want to say thank you so very much for giving me a few minutes of your time. I just want to talk a little bit about a process by which we're going to elect our new candidates on June 22nd, and that's ranked choice voting. And I was just wondering if you had any ideas about it.
Yeah, so ranked choice voting is something that we voted on as voters. We voted through a charter revision to implement ranked choice voting. It'll be used the first time in this primary election. One of the, and so like there was an education process. Folks understood what it was, and the majority of New Yorkers, I think 70% of folks voted yes for it. The problem we're having right now is that the education piece, the implementation piece, hasn't been done, in my opinion, in a way that's going to be helpful. The rollout has been really slow. Our elected officials haven't done a good job in terms of letting folks know exactly what ranked choice voting is, how do you use it, the benefits of it, etc. And
so now, one of the things about ranked choice voting is that we want to try to get a 50% threshold the first time out to prevent a runoff, because runoffs, firstly, are very, very expensive, and secondly, we let people come out for runoff elections. So it's important that we get it right the very first time. And secondly, I was just wondering what your thoughts were about people who think that if they put their candidates in all 5 slots. In my opinion, I think that defeats the purpose, and I was just wondering what your opinion was about that.
Yeah, so you can only vote for one candidate once. So like if you like a particular candidate, you can't rank them multiple times. You can only you can only vote for them in one slot.
Exactly.
So yeah, so I think, yeah, so like I don't think the situation you just outlined is doable. Because you can only rank one person in one slot.
Exactly, and I just wanted, the reason I asked you that question is that I just wanted an opportunity to clear that aspect up.
Right.
And I just want to say, brother, thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for the work you're doing.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you. All right.
Man, thank you so very much for giving me a few minutes of your time. I just wanted to ask you a question about the new method of voting that will take place on June 22nd, and that is ranked choice voting. And I just want you to give me an idea of what your opinions are about it.
Yeah, I think ranked choice voting is a great system. It actually gives our community, especially voters, more options and more power to select up to 5 candidates. So, previously we only had to select one candidate in order to vote for someone, but now all municipal races now have the option of selecting up to 5 candidates. So I have the option of selecting candidate A, candidate B, candidate C, candidate D as my options. So those are like, those options that you have now are ranked choice voting, and more power to the voter.
So lastly, my second question is, people think that the idea of putting their candidate in all 5 slots is going to make a difference. But I was wondering, do you subscribe to the notion that that will defeat the purpose of ranked choice voting, because it won't allow us to get the 50% threshold, which we need to prevent a runoff? And I think ranked choice voting is put in place so it prevents the runoff, which lesser people come out to vote, and it's more expensive. And I was just wondering, lastly, what were your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think that's great. Like runoffs are usually expensive, and they've costed us a lot of money. So with ranked choice voting, as you said, we get to the majority quickly with those ranked choice voting rounds. So it's like easier access for all of us to vote easily, but also to have like a less cost for elections and runoffs. And I think,
brother, thank you so very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
So good afternoon, my brother. You're running for the 35th Council District here in Brooklyn.
Right.
And I just wanted to ask you your opinion about ranked choice voting.
In terms of the whole process itself?
In terms of the process, and I was wondering, do you subscribe to the notion that ranked choice voting is important? Because in most elections, if you don't receive a 50% threshold, that means there's going to be a runoff.
Right.
And runoffs generally cost millions of dollars. So what we're trying to do with ranked choice voting is to prevent that from happening. Now, I was wondering, do you also subscribe to the notion that under ranked choice voting, it's advantageous for the elections not to be contentious, because under ideal circumstances, you want your opponent's supporters to pick you second. And I was wondering what were your thoughts about that?
I don't think any election should be uncontested or on contentions, because I believe that you got to bring out all of the issues that might make your opponent not qualified to be in the office of city council. I don't agree with ranked choice voting. I don't think it's a good system, but it's a system that the state and the city have adopted because of the way to actually clean out the election process. I'm hoping that once this process is really vetted, because if you remember, this process was used in Queens, and they took probably over a month to actually count the votes and declare a winner. I see that happening in this race.
But also, that also happens with mail-in ballots also. And a lot of people are going to ask for mail-in ballots because they're still afraid of the pandemic.
Right.
So in terms of when we find out who the candidates are, I don't think ranked choice voting is going to have a major impact on that. In my opinion, I think the mail-in ballots will prevent us from knowing who the winners are on the next day. So I was just wondering what were your opinions.
Mailing ballot is a little different, right? Because, well, not really, because you're going to have to use the same process.
That's right.
In the mailing ballot. So to me, the reason it took so long in Queens to count the ballot was just because of that.
That's right.
Because the mailing ballot had to be counted slowly, and then you had to move the ranked choice voting up and up and up, and that didn't happen right away. And so people were all disgusted by it. My looking down the field, I believe that this system is going to be changed. I don't think ranked choice voting is here to stay.
Okay, let's find out. And I just want to say thank you so very much for your time and all the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you so much for your time.
So Hudson, it's so good to see you out here at Putnam Triangle for the candidates debate. So I wanted to just go back to a conversation that we had earlier about ranked choice voting. It seems that a lot of people are unaware of it, and it's just my opinion that it's almost akin to going into your voting slot and not being aware of what's happening. Is like almost like having a jar of jelly beans there and you being asked how many are in it. And I just want you to kind of speak again about ranked choice voting.
Absolutely, and happy to do so. So ranked choice voting is a new way of voting we have this year. It'll be for the city council, but also all of the citywide positions, the mayor, the comptroller, the New York City public advocate, the borough president. And all it is really is selecting your top 5 choices for who you want to represent you. So instead of having to pick just one person, and let's say that person wins with only 35% of the vote, knowing that the majority of people did not vote for them, what this process allows us to do is it allows us to rank people so that the top person who gets 50% of the vote plus 1 vote is the person who wins. So the person with the majority of people selecting them is the person who ultimately wins. So you have the opportunity. You may not get your first choice in office. It may be your second or your third choice, but at least you know that you had your second or your third choice and you had a say in who was ultimately in office.
And you know, most importantly, I think one of the issues that people seem to maybe not understand is that we need to find a process to elect candidates to receive that 50% threshold so we don't have to continue to do runoffs, which is very, very expensive.
Well, ranked choice voting helps prevent runoffs, actually. So ranked choice voting ensures that we don't have to go through a runoff. The ranked choice voting process is essentially a runoff in and of itself without costing the city and state, millions of dollars to do a runoff election.
And I just have one last question for you,
Sure.
Crystal, and I know you're very busy. But do you subscribe to the notion that ranked choice voting will help prevent campaigns to be contentious? Because ideally, you want all your opponents or supporters to pick you second?
So I can say that I'm very proud of the fact that I've run a campaign that's rooted in love and care and respect and honesty and integrity. I don't know that I can say the same for some of the other candidates. And so I am speaking to everyone when I'm speaking to folks about who I think they should vote for, about putting me number one. And if I'm not their first choice, asking them for support as their second choice. But I'm not sure that other candidates are taking the same approach.
Crystal, thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Thorburn. Always a pleasure to chat with you.
Absolutely. Thank
Take
you so
care.
much.
Okay.